What's going on, gang? It's your boy DBGTX, and after all these announcement trailers and leaks and Maximilian talking about homeless Ken, I think at this point I could definitely go ahead and talk a little bit about everything that's come out and what I believe is going to be the biggest tool in Street Fighter 6's arsenal in this upcoming game that they're dropping, obviously, in this game. I honestly believe that this game, this game's biggest feature is not the all-star caliber roster that got leaked. It's not this open world bit that we're being shown here. It's true and honest feedback that they've gotten from us throughout the last God knows how long. That has been one of the biggest things that a lot of companies have not done in their respective departments. And one of the things that I feel that Street Fighter 6 and Capcom has genuinely done this time around versus the last time. One of the biggest things I could tell you guys right now is that Street Fighter 6 is going to be accessible to a lot of people. And that is the biggest thing for Capcom. The biggest thing for Capcom to redeem themselves for the bad taste they left in the Street Fighter 5 audience's mouth is that this game's accessibility is infinite. One of the biggest factors that does that is going to be the following, which I'm going to talk about in this video. And that in of itself is going to define this genre and turn it into what we will know as the best game in 2D history for this current generation. Now, it's saying a lot, personally, coming from a person who's played Street Fighter for so long, but it's coming from a good place. And again, accessibility is the number one thing. These are my reasons why. Street Fighter 6 has such a different battle design in comparison to all the other games that we've played for Street Fighter. Capcom has had one thing in common with each and every iteration of Street Fighter that has come in the past. And one of the biggest things that Capcom has had is that you can basically take Street Fighter 2's concept and playability and translate it into Street Fighter 4 and transfer that knowledge into Street Fighter 5, so on and so forth. Capcom has not liked to switch up their things as much, and they have tried to keep it as traditional as possible. Nonetheless, in this iteration of Street Fighter, we are getting a whole complete overhaul in the battle system. And if you guys check out the official Street Fighter page, it will show you what I'm talking about. These are the drive systems, the control types, and the last part, which is also part of the accessibility and building a rapport with audiences and building a rapport with being in tune and in touch with your community, is the real-time commentary. Now, all of this news has been released officially, so I can possibly comment on it and talk about it without incurring any wrath from Capcom in regards to all this information. For one, let's look at the things that I mentioned before. The biggest thing that we have to talk about here is the drive system and the control type. Accessibility has always been a staple for Capcom. If you look at this image here, we have a detailed breakdown of how the image is broken down on the 2D standpoint. One of the biggest things is the drive gauge right here, which they're saying that this replenishes as you're fighting as you perform various actions in Street Fighter 6. When the gauge is empty, the fighter will enter burnout and will not be able to use drive-related techniques until the gauge is replenished. Essentially, this is going to control all the paint art moves that you guys saw on screen beforehand, like this one right here. So a lot of this is going to be the defining factor of how people's playing style will come into play into this game. And that's really one of the key things about this video and what I wanted to talk about. So with this particular new battle design system, the drive gauge comes in 5 different modes. Those 5 different modes adjust to the fighter's playing style, the gamer's playing style, and the overall onset of how a player wants to go ahead and go about his own maneuverability. Now, if you go to each one of these, it will show you basically what each and one of them does. There's the drive impact, the drive parry, the overdrive, the drive rush, and the drive reversal. There is a whole bunch of rock, paper, scissors, and that was shown in the video. When you use two kind of parries together, one will counter the other, and it's essentially that's going to make accessibility be that much better in this game. Now, in this video, I will not get into the whole details of each one of these. That will be for a full separate video, since that will definitely extend the time that I want to go ahead and talk about all of accessibilities. The next thing is the modern control type versus the classic type. Now, this right here is a very divergent path from the original Street Fighter and how Street Fighter has always worked. Now, imagine this. Street Fighter has always had the inputs of you pushing circle, quarter moon, all those stuff. Since the very first Street Fighter, it has always been there. The Hadouken has always been the same. The Sonic Boom, the spinning bird kick, you name all these moves from Street Fighter 2, those moves have always traditionally and classically have had the same inputs. They will never change, which is why classic mode is included. That is right, classic mode is included here, but it's not the preferred playstyle in this game. The game has changed its way of playing in order to cater to an audience who doesn't want to remember all these extra inputs. And that is a staggering difference, a staggering change in the concept of Street Fighter, which is going to give the accessibility to millions of players, not just thousands, millions of players that never picked up Street Fighter because they didn't know how to press forward square, down triangle, down forward triangle, then do a DP, EXDP, all that stuff, pressing all these buttons together in order to do one combo, one string of combo. That is being taken away. And people will say that this makes Street Fighter easy mode. I'm saying that this makes Street Fighter more accessible. Accessibility. Give the people accessibility to your game, an easier way to be able to figure things out. And that doesn't take away from those who are hardcore champions, because I know in my heart that I'm going to possibly be playing with the classic style, but I'll check out the modern style to see which one can fit to my needs. Now, if you check out the controllers, now this I will dive into, because that is something that I definitely want to go ahead and talk about, the modern versus classic. On the modern, if you guys can, as you guys can see here, the modern is set up very, 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 very similar to, you guessed it, Marvel versus Capcom. That is right. It is very similar to Marvel versus Capcom. It is very similar to Dragon Ball Fighters. That is right. The same button layout for Dragon Ball Fighters. Light punch, medium attack, heavy attack, into a special move that you can control it based off which way you press it. If you press forward triangle, down triangle, back triangle, each one of those is going to do a separate move, which is the same concept of the Dragon Ball Fighter era. That is the introduction of the Marvel vs. Capcom style buttons into a game like this. In the trailer, there has been indications that this game may be 2v2 or may have a 2v2 designation, and that can come into play, especially with the modern control style. Now, I'm not saying that the whole entire game is going to be a 2v2 action, but there possibly can be 2v2 brackets alongside 1v1 brackets, and that's going to change the concept of Street Fighter completely as well, which is giving accessibility for people who like to play tag team to be able to play together And of course, people who like to go ahead and do set combos with assists and things like that can also play and enjoy these kind of games. So that is something that I saw in the trailer, and I think that it should be spoken on more often than not as a possibility in this particular generation of Street Fighter, which can lend into the accessibility and make it so that people who like playing tag team games or are requiring the need of a partner or something like that, or like playing the whole tag team Marvel vs. Capcom style games, can fit into this genre as well. Simple, easy, straightforward. You come in, you press the buttons, you learn your buttons, and you learn your combo strings a la Dragon Ball FighterZ. That's to review what's going on up there. You can press Hadouken with a simple triangle button. As you guys can see, the Tatsumaki Senpuka, pressing back triangle, Shoryuken pressing forward, high blade kick, pressing down. All of these setups, all of these are going to be able to be done by a certain style of mechanics. And to be honest, if there's going to be a lot of people who are going to feel, that this is cheating, that there's going to be a lot of folks now that traditionally would not be good in Street Fighter that are now playing Street Fighter heavy or now are one of the top fighters in Street Fighter. But don't let this fool you, man. Being able to have access to this only allows newcomers and people that don't have the same eye-hand coordination or weren't raised in this kind of concept of games to be able to come into this game and say, I can play this, I can enjoy this, I can do this without feeling left out or without feeling like at one point or another the game is going to literally drop and decrease, and the only people that you're going to see in the top high-end ranking are the same people over and over and over and over again. For the lifespan of Street Fighter V, we know who are the top dogs in Street Fighter V. They've been the top dogs for Street Fighter V. We've had some championships slip and some others come up, but as far as it goes, you can still date back the people who are in Street Fighter V to the people who are in Street Fighter 4, the best of Street Fighter 4, and so on and so forth. So this is opening a path to those people who are coming into Street Fighter but are used to the Marvel vs. Capcom style buttons and the Marvel vs. Capcom, Guilty Gear, all that kind of concept, being able to, put that into that perspective, into the modern perspective, and being able to give ease of access to everybody. If you played traditional Street Fighter, you still got all of that by inputting the original controls in there. You're going to be able to go ahead and do the same command inputs, the Tatsumaki and all that. For those who still play with those kind of move sets and those kind of concepts, and you'll be able to choose this in that character select screen. From my understanding, in the character select screen, you'll be able to choose your overdrive system. You'll be able to select, of course, the control type, and so on and so forth. One is going to suffer more than the other, and what that means is that the classic controller more than likely is going to be more precise on the button inputs than the modern style controller. Does that mean that you're not going to be able to perform the same combos as the classic controller? No. It just means that the timing on the modern style is going to be that much different, or a little bit different than it would have been if you was doing it, obviously, with the classic controller. And I didn't touch the real-time commentary, but this is something that is very important to those who watch Combo Breaker, the Evo fights, all of the Capcom Pro Tours and such. We're gonna have the commentary of these personnel in the game, and as more commentators and more people do tournaments and more people get called on by Capcom, that can definitely be a signal in the sky for those people who love commentary and love to do tournaments like me, who are out there doing amateur tournaments and not. Make sure that you get on your A game. Make sure that you're on top of your stuff, because Capcom could be calling your door saying, hey, do you want to be part of the commentary team if your commentary on your own tournaments, on your own channels and whatnot is looking that good, so on and so forth. Like is mentioned here, more commentators to be announced, but so far it's looking crisp, it's looking good, it's feeling amazingly close to home, and it feels like I'm not just playing with generic with generic commentators like the usual traditional fighters. This time they're listening to the community, adding the people that we love to hear when we get on these Twitch streams and whatnot. And to be brutally honest, you can't take that away at all. The only thing that I can say is that Street Fighter 6 is in good hands. The modern control type is definitely bringing a very much needed wrinkle and very much an ease of access to players that grew up more so on Marvel vs. Capcom, Dragon Ball Fighters, and things like that. Capcom has done an amazing job in being able to incorporate this feature into their video games. And I think that it's a bold move, albeit what everyone is talking about, saying that this is going to make it easy mode for everybody. And of course, for those who've already have, let's say, an edge on the Street Fighter game. Now, do I believe that? I don't think so. I think it will be a readjustment for even the classic players to play with the modern controls. But at the end of the day, there is adaptability, there is accessibility. The overdrive system as well is giving you a way bigger chance to be able to get into your own playing style no matter who you are playing with. So you can play with Vega a la Rush. You can play Vega doing parries and being able to eat some hits and getting into the action. You could play with, let's say, Chun-Li, who doesn't have that much health in general, be able to go ahead and eat some hits and come back and do something through that. Whereas in the traditional sense, you couldn't do that with Chun-Li. So I really do look forward to seeing the newcomers and those people who are going to be using the modern style controller and all the other and all these overdrive systems and impact systems to be able to perform and show this generation of Street Fighter or the older generation of Street Fighter what people from the Dragon Ball Fighters community can do when they get their hands on a game like this, that you can perform, you know, combos and stuff like that with simpler inputs and whatnot. Outside of that, it's still going to be anybody's ball game as to who will be on top, whether you play classic or modern style on that sense. With that being said, that's all I got. If you guys did enjoy this video, I highly recommend to hit the sub, the like, the share, and continue coming through. I think that we've covered a lot of ground so far on the whole Street Fighter 6. We will be doing more Street Fighter 5 content. Of course, like I mentioned before in my other video, we do have a tournament coming up. So if you do want to participate in that tournament, leave a comment down below. $150 on the line, middle of July. It's going to be out here. We're going to be doing that. So holla at your boy. But ultimately, this is what we got for today. Of course, breaking down the drive system modes, the classic versus modern controller. So that's where I leave that at. Holla at the boy, and I'm out.